Inshallah, we'll start in just a couple of minutes. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. For the love of our beloved Prophet and his beloved progeny, please recite a loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. For the hastening in the return of our beloved 12th Imam, please recite another loud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters. I hope everyone is doing well. We will continue with the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. And today, inshallah, will be the 19th part of the story of Prophet Yusuf. We reach this point in the story of Yusuf alayhi salam where he and his brothers came back from the second trip that they had made to Egypt. This time again, they have gone back to Egypt to get the wheat that they need because they're going through a drought. When they came back this time, Yaqub alayhi salam saw that not only have they come back, but they have not brought with them Binyamin. So not only has he lost Yusuf already in the years before, now Binyamin also, he has lost him as well. And that's why when they came, they told Yaqub alayhi salam about what had happened. The verses of the Quran said, وَتَوَلَّى عَنْهُمْ. He turned away from them and he started to cry and he started to mourn. وَبْيَضَّتْ عَيْنَاهُ مِنَ الْحُزْنِ فَهُوَ كَظِيمٌ. And he lost his eyesight. He did this so much that the brothers of Yusuf turned to him. They said, تَاللَّهِ تَفْتَأُ تَذْكُرُ يُوسُف حَتَّى تَكُونَ حَرَضًا. If you continue down this path, If you continue like this, where every single second you are thinking about Yusuf, you're thinking about the brother of Yusuf, you will reach a point where you're going to be between life and death. You won't even be alive anymore. You will be like a corpse. You know, you've seen sometimes when someone goes through a very difficult musibah, a very difficult situation, a very difficult calamity. Sometimes they cry so much, they mourn so much, it reaches a point where you look at this person, it's just a shell of a person at that point. Haradan means you're somewhere between life and death. أو تكون من الحالكين, or you actually leave this world. Yaqub alayhi salam came back, he responded. He said, قال إنما أشكو بثي وحزني إلى الله. He said, I don't need anything from you. I am going to take my grief, my sadness, and I'm going to go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm going to speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about it. And I believe in Him, and I know something about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you all do not know. I still have hope that Yusuf and his brother, they will come back, and as a family, we will all get together once again. We talked about the hope of Yusuf, the hope of Yaqub alayhi salam in the previous session. Now this point comes where Yaqub wants to send his children back again to the region of Egypt. Why is he sending his children back to Egypt again? Because what we read in history is that every 6 months, 2 times a year, Yaqub used to send his children back to Egypt. Once in the middle of the summer that they were going through, and another time in the middle of the winter that they were going through, because these were the 2 moments of the year, the 2 times of the year, where from a drought perspective, in terms of the crops that you're trying to grow, they would be in their most difficult position. Therefore, Yaqub alayhi salam, every 6 months he is sending his children to go back to Egypt again. This time when the brothers of Yusuf go back, it is going to be their 3rd time. And this time, Yaqub alayhi salam has still not lost his hope. He said, Ya bani yadhhabu fatahassasu min Yusufa wa akhi. Go and try to find, investigate, try to find any clues of where Yusuf and his brother could be. وَلَا تَيْأَسُوا مِنْ رَوْحِ اللَّهِ, and do not lose hope in the convenience that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might bring to you. إِنَّهُ لَا يَيْأَسُ مِنْ رَوْحِ اللَّهِ إِلَّا الْقَوْمُ الْكَافِرُونَ. Surely the one who loses hope in the convenience, in the aid, the assistance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he is amongst al-qawmul kafirun. What does this mean? This means that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it clear to us that we are to rely on Him, that He is there to support us, this is not a recommendation. This is not a suggestion. This is more of a requirement. Usually when someone shows you a suggestion, they give you their support and they give you their aid and assistance. They promise to be there for you when you need their help. Usually what this means is that if you take them up on that suggestion, then great. If you don't, that's also fine. In fact, many times they will be happier if you don't take them up on that suggestion. But we said when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, relying on Him, relying on His aid and His assistance and His nusra, this is a requirement in the sense that if someone sees that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing His support, as He has already, and he does not take him up on that suggestion, he relies on others instead of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what will happen is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will punish this individual. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make sure that this person walks away disappointed from the hope that he had in anybody else. That's why Yaqub is saying, إِنَّهُ لَا يَيْأَسُ مِنْ رَوْحِ اللَّهِ إِلَّا الْقَوْمُ الْكَافِرُونَ. Only the kafirun, only the disbelievers are the ones who do not rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They lose hope in the aid and the assistance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Moving forward, there's hadith where a companion of the 5th Imam approaches the 5th Imam. He asks him about this verse of the Quran, that أيها الإمام الباقر, how did Yaqub know that his son is still alive, that Yusuf is still alive, that even after all of these years, he turns to his other sons and he says, فَتَحَسَّسُوا مِنْ يُوسُفَ وَأَخِيهِ, go and look for Yusuf and his brother. The hadith explains that Yaqub alayhi salam, he was in touch with Malikul Maut, and he had asked Malikul Maut. He asked him, he said, when you take the souls of people on earth, do you take their souls all at once, or do you take their soul one by one? He said, I take their souls one by one, not all at once. He said, well, if you take their souls one by one, have you ever come across the soul of my son? Have you ever come across the soul of Yusuf? Malikul Maut said, no, I have not taken his soul. And this is how Yaqub knew that his son was still alive. Did this happen at this part of the story, or did it happen earlier on in the story? We don't know. The hadith doesn't speak of that. The hadith simply says that when Yaqub was saying, فَتَحَسَّسُوا مِن يُوسَفَ وَأَخِيهِ, go and look for Yusuf and his brother, it just says this is how he knew that his brother and Yusuf are still alive. Moving on from this, the brothers of Yusuf are now going to come to Yusuf. They're going to come back to Egypt for the third time. But this time, their approach is going to be different from previous times, and for good reason, for two main reasons. This time when they came to Egypt and they entered into the courtyard of Yusuf alayhi salam, which they are now going to refer to as Al-Aziz, the honorable one, the great, the powerful one. When they entered this time, they spoke with a special vulnerability. They spoke with special humility. And there is reason for this. So they entered this time. وَلَمَّا دَخَلُوا عَلَيْهِ قَالُوا يَا أَيُّهَا الْعَزِيزِ مَسَّنَا وَأَهْلَنَا الضُّرِّ. They said, the honorable one, your honor, we are in a very difficult position. The drought is really pressuring our family. It's really making things difficult for us. وَجِئْنَا بِبِضَاعَةٍ مُزْجَاةٍ. And we've come and we've brought some money to buy some wheat, but this money is not enough. بِضَاعَةٍ مُزْجَاةٍ means the type of money that's not enough. If you are asking for $100, we have brought $80. We've brought $70. Whatever the currency might have been at that time. وَجِئْنَا بِبِضَاعَةٍ مُزْجَاةٍ. But we still need to ask you for two favors. فَأَوْفِ لَنَا الْكَيْلِ وَتَصَدَّقْ عَلَيْنَا. If you can, when you are giving this wheat to us, if you can do it with the full measure, even though our money is not the full amount that it's supposed to be, but because you have grace, because you have mercy, because you have generosity, if you can give us from the wheat to its full measure, وَتَصَدَّقْ عَلَيْنَا, and be charitable towards us. What are the brothers of Yusuf saying exactly? Let's break this down a little bit. This time when the brothers of Yusuf came, they referred to Yusuf alayhi salam as Al-Aziz, the honorable one. If you look back in the story, you find other times the brothers of Yusuf were not speaking with this particular terminology. They might have referred to Yusuf with some other terminology, but this time the Quran explains that they said Ayyuhal Aziz. The only other time in the verses of the Quran that they referred to Yusuf as Al-Aziz was the last time that they really needed a favor from Yusuf, and that is when Yusuf took Binyamin and they wanted Yusuf to replace one of them instead of Binyamin. If you go back a couple of verses, they said, Ya ayyuhal aziz, inna lahu aban shaykhan kabira. We're in this very vulnerable position. This young man, he has a very old father. فَخُذْ أَحَدَنَا مَكَانَهُ. If you can take one of us instead of him. So you find the brothers of Yusuf, when they're in difficult positions, when they're in vulnerable positions, they resort to this term of Al-Aziz. And this is what they are doing here as well. Why are they in this vulnerable position? Because there are two requests that they have of Aziz. There's two requests that they have of Yusuf. فَأَوْفِ لَنَا الْكَيْلِ. They need the wheat and their money is not enough. So that's number one. Number two, وَتَصَدَّقْ عَلَيْنَا. Be charitable towards us. If you can free Binyamin for us as well. Two requests the brothers of Yusuf are coming forward with. Now someone might ask, this word tasadduq, sadaqa, which you find we even have in our cultures even up to this day. This is something that you normally use for money. This is something that you use normally for a possession. It's not something that you would use for another human being. But the point you and I are missing is that at this point, Binyamin is the possession of Yusuf alayhi salam. Because this is the principle, the punishment that the brothers of Yusuf explained to Yusuf when he asked them, what is the punishment if we do find out that Binyamin is the one who stole my cup, my glass? They said, well, Binyamin becomes yours. He has to work for you. Therefore, when they say وَتَصَدَّقْ عَلَيْنَا, give us sadaqah, yes, normally sadaqah, it is used in the form of a possession, of wealth, of money, a currency that you're asking for. But when it comes to Yusuf and his brothers in this particular situation, because Binyamin is considered a possession of Yusuf at this point, it makes sense for them to say وَتَصَدَّقْ عَلَيْنَا. And then they ended their request with something that sounds kind of like a dua. Inna Allah yajzil mutasaddiqin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will reward those who are charitable towards the other servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The reason why they are, mentioning their request in such a kind and such a vulnerable manner is because both of these requests, they know there is a very good chance that these requests will not be fulfilled for them. They know that. Why do they know that? As it relates to the first one, the measuring, even though they don't have enough money, they want the wheat in the full measure. They are at a disadvantage, and when it comes to this request of theirs, because they have already seen, and Yusuf has already seen, how these guys point the finger at one another, and how they disrespected the family of Binyamin and Yusuf alayhi salam. Because if you remember, when they removed the cup or the glass from the sack of wheat that belonged to Binyamin, what did they say? They said, قَالُوا إِن يَسْرِقْ فَقَدْ سَرَقَ أَخٌ لَهُ مِنْ قَبْلَ. They told Yusuf alayhi salam, if you see him stealing things, it is no matter of surprise. It's nothing to be surprised about. Their whole family is like this. You might say, well, you guys are all from the same family. No, the brothers of Yusuf, they considered themselves to be from a separate family than Yusuf and Binyamin, because we know that Yusuf and Binyamin, they came from a different mother. Because of that, the brothers of Yusuf, they are more than willing to sit there and put these labels on the family of Yusuf, referring to Yusuf, Binyamin, and their mother, because the mother of the rest of the brothers of Yusuf was a different lady. First thing they did, they pointed fingers. Because of this, they know that this time Yusuf, he may not be as generous. Number two, they're asking for Binyamin to also go with them this time. But they have already asked for this request before as well. Because before they said, فَخُذْ أَحَدَنَا مَكَانَهُ, take one of us instead of him. And what did Yusuf alayhi salam respond? Yusuf said, if I were to do that, I would be amongst the dhalimeen. You guys told me this is the law that you go by. Then why should I not abide by the law that you guys go by? And your father is a prophet, as you have mentioned to me. So if I do anything against this, then I would be amongst the dhalimeen. They are in a very vulnerable position at this moment. What we also understand from hadith is that as they came in, they approached the Aziz of Misr, they approached Yusuf alayhi salam with these two requests. One of the things that also helped in this regard was that Yaqub alayhi salam had written a letter to the Aziz of Misr. Yaqub doesn't know this is his son Yusuf. He's just writing it to the person who's in charge of the wheat in the city or the region of Egypt. And the hadith says that the letter went something like this. That at the beginning of the letter, Yaqub, he introduced himself. He said, my name is Yaqub. I am the son of Ishaq. I am a prophet. He is a prophet. And he is the son of Ibrahim Khalilullah, the great prophet of Allah, who entered into hell, into fire, and still was not burnt. The story of Ibrahim was well known by people. He says, I am the grandson of Ibrahim. And then he starts to get into his life and what happened to Yusuf. So in the letter he explains that yes, I had a son. He was very beautiful and I loved him so much. He was the fruit of my heart. And because certain things happened, I lost Yusuf and I haven't seen Yusuf since. And then the only person I had left amongst our family that I used to bring close to myself, I used to embrace, the last thing that my heart could cling to was Binyamin. And now these brothers of yours have come back to me. They have told me that even Binyamin has been taken because apparently he stole your glass. But let me tell you, Binyamin is not the type of person to steal anything. I know him. I have raised him. He is from the family of the Prophet. I don't think that he would be the type that he would steal anything. And then the hadith says that he ended the letter like this: O Aziz of Misr, if you could do me a favor and you could have mercy on this old man. And the hadith says when Yusuf got to the end of the letter, he started to cry. He couldn't take it anymore. He started to cry. He embraced this letter. He kissed it. He put it on his eyes. And this is where the story starts to unfold even more. Because the next line that Yusuf alayhi salam says is going to be one of the most critical lines in all of the story. Yusuf alayhi salam has been hidden. His identity has been unknown for 20, 30, 40 years. Now Yusuf is going to unveil his identity. What did Yusuf say next? He turned to his brothers. He said this: قال هل علمتم ما فعلتم بيوسف وأخيه إذ أنتم جاهلون. He said, do you guys remember what you did to Yusuf and his brother when you were ignorant? This is a very critical statement from Yusuf, and this must have struck the brothers of Yusuf, because nobody on earth, supposedly even their father from their perspective, knows about what they did to Yusuf. Nobody knows this. This is something that they had hidden amongst themselves. Nobody knew about this. How is it that this Aziz of Misr, all of a sudden, he's talking about something that happened 20, 30 years ago? Now, before the brothers of Yusuf actually realized this is Yusuf, the first line that we just mentioned that Yusuf said, the way that he mentioned it, the wording that he used, is such a beautiful wording. Because in this one line, in this one phrase that we mentioned, Yusuf is speaking like a prophet. He is keeping in mind, taking into consideration the type of etiquette that you are to have when someone is being caught because they wronged you. When someone is being held accountable after years and years because they were wronging you and they were oppressing you throughout these years. Two things that Yusuf did. First of all, Yusuf said, قَالَ هَلْ عَلِمْتُمْ مَا فَعَلْتُمْ بِيُوسُفَ وَأَخِيهِ. Do you guys remember what you did to Yusuf and his brother? What did they do to Yusuf and his brother? Yusuf could have gone into all of this detail. You remember when you guys got together and you said that our father has lost his mind, he loves Yusuf so much, and then you started to plot, you started to plan, you took me, I begged you not to throw me in the well, and you threw me in the well, and you left me there during that night. The next day you sold me, a caravan came and took me, and you did not even come looking for me. All of these details. Yusuf could have said all of this, but Yusuf did not say all of this. Why? He doesn't want his brothers to feel so embarrassed. He doesn't want to go all the way down to this level. He's an honorable individual. Doesn't want to bring himself down to this level that he gets into all of the terrible things that the brothers of Yusuf did. All he does, he alludes to it. All he does, he points to it. قَالَ هَلْ عَلِمْتُمْ مَا فَعَلْتُمْ بِيُوسُفَ وَأَخِيهِ. Do you guys remember what you did to Yusuf and his brother? And some Mufassirin say that the reason why he included his brother is because his brother also, because they both came from the same mother, a mother different from the mother of the rest of the brothers of Yusuf, because that was the case, that this younger brother, Binyamin, was also a subject of the harassment of the rest of the brothers. But you see, Yusuf didn't go into detail. This is something that we pass by. We read through this verse and we don't assume that there's any particular manner or etiquette being observed by Yusuf here, whereas the reality is that Yusuf is abiding by one of those most important etiquettes of a person who is in power, and now he is holding the other people accountable. What is that? That when you want to hold these individuals accountable, if you are generous, if you are forgiving, you will not walk them through all of the things that they did. You will just allude to it so that they understand that you know of all of the things that they did. And this is a principle that Ali ibn Abi Talib explains very beautifully. He says, "Ma istaqsa karimun qattu." Says when an honorable individual speaks, when he's going to hold someone accountable, he never goes through all of the details. And then Amirul Mu'mineen, he references the story in Surah At-Tahrim. The story of Surah At-Tahrim and the name of Tahrim came from the situation where the Prophet used to go to one of his wives. That wife of his used to prepare a syrup that he used to drink. The other wives felt jealous about this. They came together, two of them. They plotted. They said, whenever the Prophet comes to us, after having drank from this syrup, we will tell the Prophet that his breath has a bad scent. So much so that he will reach a point that he will not drink anymore because he's always trying to make us happy. We will take advantage of this and we will make sure that this time when he comes, we tell him that his breath has a bad smell and scent to it. Therefore, he will not drink from that syrup anymore so that he would leave that other wife of his. He won't show so much affection to that other wife of his. And the story continues, and it's a long story until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals to the Prophet that these two wives have done this. Then the verses of Surah At-Tahrim say this, that the Prophet, he confronted these two wives of his. But did he go through all of the details? No. عَرَّفَ بَعْدَهُ وَأَعْرَضَ عَنْ بَعْضٍ. He just alluded to their plots and plans. He just alluded to the evil that they had in mind. وَأَعْرَضَ عَنْ بَعْضٍ. And the rest of the details he did not even speak of. This is a person who is generous, a person who's honorable, forgiving. When he is in a position of power, he doesn't want to entangle himself with all the details. He just alludes to it so that the other person understands that he knows what this person was trying to do to him. This is what Yusuf is doing here as well. قَالَ هَلْ عَلِمْتُمْ. Do you guys remember what you did? Number one. Then you move on to the end of the verse. He says, إِذْ أَنْتُمْ جَاهِلُونَ. When you all were ignorant. What is Yusuf alayhi salam doing? He's telling his brothers that I know that when you threw me in the well, this is not because of an animosity that you had. This is because of jahalat. He is showing them the way that they can come back and apologize for what they did. You see, when you do something wrong, and this is there in our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. When we do something wrong, there's two ways that you can come back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and speak of this wrong deed that you did. There is a way where you come back and you say, you know what, when I did this wrong deed, I felt an animosity in my heart towards you. I wanted to oppose you. I hated you. That's why I did this. And then there's a time where you come back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you say, you know, if I ended up doing this, it wasn't because I was your enemy. It wasn't because I had animosity towards you. It was because I had some ignorance. I had some immaturity. And there's a stark difference between the two of these because your approach when you come back to speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very critical. This is why you find this approach in Dua Abu Hamza Thumali. In Dua Abu Hamza Thumali, which is narrated from our beloved fourth Imam, salawatullahi wasalamu alayhi. In that dua, the fourth Imam, as it's a very long dua, he continues to recite and recite. Then he comes to this lines. He says, Ilahi, ana lam a'asika hina asaytuk. Why didn't I never oppose you? Wa ana bi rububiyyatika jahid. I never disobeyed you while I really wanted to oppose you. That was not the case. I did it because of my ignorance. In the moment, something happened, shaitan tricked me, therefore I ended up doing this. And my nafs made this evil deed look good to me. Because of that, I ended up doing it. You find this in Dua Abu Hamza Thumali. You also find it in a dua that we recite all the time, known as Dua Kumail. In Dua Kumail, you also find this, that Ali ibn Abi Talib speaks of the idea and the notion that when I was disobeying you, Ya Allah, I was not disobeying you out of animosity. I was not disobeying you because I hated you and I wanted to oppose you. No, I ended up in a situation, I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. فَغَرَّنِي بِمَا أَهْوَى وَأَسْعَدَهُ عَلَى ذَلِكَ الْقَضَى. I ended up in a situation where my ego, my desires, shaitan, they tricked me. وَأَسْعَدَهُ عَلَى ذَلِكَ الْقَضَى. And the situation that I was in, the time and position that I was in, they also aided him and they also assisted him in him tricking me. That's not to say that you don't take blame. وَلَا حُجَّةَ لِي فِيمَا جَرَى عَلَيَّ فِيهِ قَضَاؤُكَ. I am not sitting here and saying that I'm not going to take blame for what I did. But it's just a different approach, that I didn't do this out of animosity. Yusuf is teaching his brothers, إِذْ أَنْتُمْ جَاهِلُونَ. Do you remember what you did when you were ignorant, as opposed to when you were an enemy of Yusuf alayhi salam? And add on top of all of this, that hadith says that when he was ending the sentence, he ended it with a smile. See the forgiveness of Yusuf alayhi salam. Just spectacular, the way a prophet approaches the idea of being forgiving. Recite a salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Of course, the brothers of Yusuf are now, they're shaken to their core, because they feel now that we had this secret. Nobody knew about this secret except for one person, that was Yusuf alayhi salam. And now this man standing in front of us is speaking of this secret that we had. So then they say this, قَالُوا أَإِنَّكَ لَأَنْتَ Yusuf? They say, are you Yusuf? Now they of course structured this sentence in the structure of a question, but in reality it wasn't a question. In reality they knew that he was Yusuf, but they put it this way because it was so difficult for them to believe it. It was so difficult for them to digest this idea. You've seen sometimes where you want to tell your friend, for example, something that you're very surprised about, right? You say, oh, that's that guy, right? Isn't it? Well, you know it's him, but you are so surprised that you still turn to your friend, right? Your brother, your sister, your sibling. You put it in the form of a question. قَالُوا أَإِنَّكَ لَأَنْتَ Yusuf? They said, are you Yusuf? Now, these lines that Yusuf is about to say, again, are going to be very critical. Because now the stage is set. Yusuf alayhi salam is standing there. His brother to his side, Binyamin to his side, and his other brothers are down there. He's in a place of authority. They are in a place of vulnerability. What did Yusuf alayhi salam say next? What is that one sentence that came out of the mouth of Yusuf alayhi salam in this critical moment when his brothers are so vulnerable and he is the one who now has the power and the authority? He continued, he said, قَالَ أَنَا يُوسُفُ وَهَذَا أَخِي. I am Yusuf and this is my brother. Okay, so what are you going to say next? قَدْ مَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَيْنَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed us. That's not what we expect of Yusuf to say. What we expect of Yusuf to say is, yes, I was the one who passed all of the tests. I was the one who was able to be patient. I was the one who went through all of these difficulties. You see, I told you that you guys would be punished. I told you that this day would come. But you find that Yusuf doesn't say not a word of this type of discourse. What does Yusuf alayhi salam respond with? He said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed me that I was able to reach this point. These are the same approach that Yusuf alayhi salam had when he came up against Zulaykha, and Zulaykha approached him. What was the first words that came out of the mouth of Yusuf over there? قَالَ مَعَاذَ اللَّهِ. He said, I seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was not relying on himself. Now that he has passed all of these tests with flying colors, still he says what? He puts the credit for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. قَدْ مَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَيْنَا. He is the one who blessed us. Now you look at this in our own lives. The smallest amount of success that we are able to attain in this world, the moment we reach that point of being successful, people start praising you. People start noticing that you are now taking it up a notch. You're going to the next level. What is the thing that we do? The first thing that we do is we move on to the mindset of the Qaruns of the world. You know, the Qarun, he also was very successful from a financial perspective. He had so much wealth that the Quran says it was difficult for people to even carry the keys to his treasures. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Musa alayhi salam, used to say, Ahsin, kama ahsanallahu ilayk. Be charitable, give from your wealth, the same way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given from his wealth to you. What would Qarun respond with? Qarun would respond with, Innama utituhu ala ilmin indi. What wealth, what God, what gift you're talking about? This is the wealth that I gained because of my own capabilities. It's my own knowledge. I was the one who made this happen. And yet you find Yusuf going through all of these tests. And at the end of the day, what does he say? قَدْ مَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَيْنَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was the one who blessed me. Then he moves on. Now bear in mind, this moment is the most vulnerable moment in the lives of the brother of Yusuf alayhi salam. There is no other moment in the whole story where the brothers of Yusuf feel as vulnerable and as weak as they do right now. But what does Yusuf alayhi salam do with this vulnerable moment of his brothers? Does he use this to take his revenge? Does he take this moment to tell them, I'm not going to take revenge? There's something else that he does. He takes the most vulnerable moment of the brothers of Yusuf, he turns it into the most teachable moment of the life of the brothers of Yusuf. Then he started to explain. He said, إِنَّهُ مَن يَتَّقِ وَيَصْبِرْ. Whoever obeys Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and is patient, فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُضِيعُ أَجْرَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never forget about what he has done. This is Yusuf alayhi salam teaching his brothers. If we were in a position like that, most of us would take revenge. A smaller portion would not take revenge, but we would not even care about these people anymore. And you find Yusuf is neither in the first group, nor is he in the second group. Not only is he not going to take revenge, not only does he just not leave the brothers for them to be, he is now going to use this moment to make it a teachable moment. Let me tell you how you're supposed to live your life. إِنَّهُ مَن يَتَّقِ وَيَصْبِرْ. You obey the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you are patient. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُضِيعُ أَجْرَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not forget. And what a beautiful principle that Yusuf alayhi salam is teaching all of us. يَتَّقِ. You obey the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Once you do that, وَيَصْبِرْ. You be patient. You leave the rest in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is no way He will forget about what you have done. Your ajr is going to be there with Him. His appreciation of what you have done will always remain. The only thing you have to do is you have to take care of your duty. Yattaqi. And then you have to be patient and you have to leave it in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you do what you are supposed to do, and then you are patient, then the result of this patience and this obeying of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sometimes you will see it in your day-to-day life very quickly. Sometimes you will not see it for years and years. And the one who has put this in the most beautiful manner is our Prophet salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. In the hadith of our Prophet we read when he was speaking about Musa and Harun. He says, Musa and Harun, after we showed all of these different signs to Fir'aun, and the Quran says there were 9 different signs that Musa showed to Fir'aun. All of these were signs so that Fir'aun would come back to the right path, and of course we know that he did not do that. After all of this was done, then the verses of the Quran say that Musa and his brother, they prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They said, Ya Allah, Fir'aun, he has misguided too many people. And he has so much wealth that with this wealth he is causing as much corruption on earth as he wants. Rabbana, if you can get rid of his wealth and you can put a stamp on their hearts, because there's no more point of them coming back. There's no more hope. This is Musa and Harun praying for the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to descend upon Fir'aun and his people. The verses of the Quran respond, قَالَ قَدْ أُجِيبَتْ دَعْوَتُكُمَا. Yes, your dua has been responded to. We have heard your dua. And then the Prophet explains. He says, from the time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told them, قَالَ قَدْ أُجِيبَتْ دَعْوَتُكُمَا, that your prayer has been responded to. In other words, the punishment for Fir'aun is going to come. From that point until the point and the day and the moment where Fir'aun actually drowned in the Red Sea, there was 40 years of a period of time. 40 years. If Musa and Harun have to wait for 40 years for that, when they call to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I have heard your call, I am doing istijabat of your dua, but still the result shows itself when? After 40 years. Then we have to adopt this as well. What I do when it comes to obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is between me and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I have to take care of that. وَيَصْبِرْ. Then I have to be patient. Then I have to wait. I have to let things be in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And He will take care of the rest. Because إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُضِيعُ أَجْرَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. He will never forget the effort, the obedience that you have shown. When will the result show itself? Sometimes it might come very soon. Sometimes it might come very, very late. Okay. Yusuf explains this to them. They, of course, come back to Yusuf and they feel embarrassed at this point. قَالُوا تَاللَّهِ لَقَدْ آثَرَكَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْنَا. They said, by Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has preferred you over us. He has shown blessings to you that He has not shown to us. وَإِن كُنَّا لَخَاطِئِينَ. And we were definitely amongst those who were mistaken. Pay attention to the wording that the brothers of Yusuf are using here. Did the brothers of Yusuf ever say, we did tawbah? Did the brothers of Yusuf ever say, Astaghfirullah Rabbi wa atubu ilayh? They didn't use any type of terminology like that. All they did was, they said, we accept now. And maybe they were saying, we understand now why Yaqub, our father, he used to show so much importance to you. Because you clearly are a more holy, a higher status than we are. Tallahi laqad atharaka Allahu alayna. You are preferred over us, not by our father, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Maybe they were saying that we understand now why Yaqub used to show so much affection towards you. This part we understand. وَإِن كُنَّا لَخَاطِئِينَ. And we were mistaken. There's apparently no talk of tawbah in these lines from the brothers of Yusuf. And we will read in the next lines that Yusuf says, I have forgiven you, although never does he precisely say that. But we will get to that later. He acts as if he has forgiven them at least. There's a point in that we will get to later. Where's the tawbah of the brothers of Yusuf? Where did they ever say, Astaghfirullah Rabbi wa atubu ilayh? Where did they ever say, Inshallah, when the night of Qadr comes this year, I will go and I will do tawbah? When did they ever say, let's wait until Friday when we go to the masjid, we will do tawbah? Did they do any of that? No, not in the verse. And yet in the next verse, Yusuf alayhi salam starts speaking to them about the forgiveness that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to show them, which means that they have essentially done tawbah. That seems a little bit like a contradiction. You don't see any tawbah, but the result of tawbah, which is the forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, seems to be there. So what's happening here? What's happening here is that tawbah is not this complicated process, brothers and sisters, that we have made it out to be. Tawbah is not when you come to the masjid and you pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tawbah means something that happens in your heart. It can happen in a split second. You are not to wait until the next night of Qadr. You're not to wait until when you go to the masjid. You're not to wait until you see some inspiring quote or some inspirational quote that then you decide to do tawbah. No. The brothers of Yusuf, all they did, they said, we regret what we did. We were wrong. And in the next verse, Yusuf speaks to them as if what? As if they have done tawbah. That's why you find hadith from Prophet Isa alayhi salam. He was passing by a group of people. This group of people, they were crying. They were weeping. They were wailing. There's a lot of noise going on. And Isa alayhi salam asked his people, he said, who are these guys? They said, we are at-tawwabun. We are the ones who do tawbah. Right? We are at-ta'ibun. We are repenting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Isa alayhi salam responded to them. He said, Kafa bin nadami tawbatan. Tawbah is great, but tawbah, all it means is that you regret what you have done, such that you do not go back to doing what you were doing before. Kafa bin nadami tawbatan. Now, of course, crying is extremely valuable. There's no doubt about that. But tawbah, at its very core, what is it? It's something that happens inside of the heart, that the human being takes the regret, the guilt that he feels for what he has done, and he makes a decision to never go back to that sin. This is tawbah. Yes, there is following up when it comes to your tawbah. Yes, when you do tawbah, if you stole from someone, you have to go and give it back to them. Yes, if you miss your prayer, you have to go and make up for it. If you miss your fasting, for example, you have to go make up for it. Yes, these are all following up on the tawbah. But tawbah in its simplest form is just the regret and a decision that you are to never go back to what you are doing. Reason why I say this, brothers and sisters, is that in our lifestyles, we are taught that tawbah is that one thing that you do when you're 67 years of age and you know there's no more going back. Tawbah is that thing that you do where you live a terrible life and then all of a sudden one night you feel very, very spiritual. Someone says something to you. It shakes you up. Then you do tawbah and all of a sudden everything changes. You become a saint all of a sudden. This is not how tawbah is. It's not how it is in the Quran. It's also not how it is in the ahadith of the Ahlul Bayt. In the hadith, multiple ahadith in Usul al-Kafi explains that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves that servant of his who is al-maftun or al-mufattan at-tawwab, the one who is constantly tested. Some of it he fails and then quickly he does tawbah. He doesn't wait until the night of Qadr. When I'm living in my house and I come across something terrible that I did, I say something to my wife, I say something to my husband, I say it in a harsh manner, I say something that was false, I made fun of somebody, I did ghaibah, whatever sin it is. Why do I have to wait until Friday? Why do I have to wait until a week or a month later? No, tawbah needs to happen immediately. Why? Because the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might come immediately. And tawbah in and of itself, it's not a complicated process in the sense that it will take years or months or days even. It's just a split second. You did something wrong, do tawbah immediately, ask for forgiveness, and be done with it. Don't let this terrible deed of yours linger in the household. Don't let this terrible deed of yours become something where your children look at you and they say, yes, this is how our father does things. This is how our mother does things. It will take her another week for her to apologize. It will take him a week to apologize. No, tawbah is supposed to happen right there in that moment. That is why we have hadith. That when the two angels on the two shoulders of a believer, they are busy recording and chronicling the different deeds of the human being. When the human being does something wrong, the angel on the right side, who is in charge of writing the good deeds, he turns to the angel on the left side. He says, do not write this deed of his, because maybe very shortly afterwards, either he'll do something good or he will do tawbah from this terrible deed that he just did. Don't even write it. Because maybe immediately afterwards, he will fix it with what? Either with tawbah or with something good that he will do. What does this teach us? Tawbah has to happen in the moment. That's why we're taught by the Ahlul Bayt that when you want to go to sleep at night, when you sleep at night and you lay down in your bed, that is a moment of reflection for you. You are to sit and think of the good things you did today. The bad things that you did today, for the good you thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the bad, you repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala right there. And then, does the hadith say wait until next year? No. The hadith says you repent right there and then. The brothers of Yusuf, all they did, they said, وَإِن كُنَّا لَخَاطِئِينَ. We are definitely mistaken. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already accepted this from them as a means of tawbah and repentance. Inshallah, with that, we will bring today's talk to an end. In the following weeks, we will discuss how Yusuf alayhi salam showed his forgiveness to them, what similarities there are between the forgiveness of Yusuf alayhi salam and the forgiveness of our Prophet salawatullahi wasalamuhu alayhi, and why the forgiveness of our Prophet is of even more significance and is even greater than the forgiveness that Yusuf is going to display in a couple of verses. With that, inshallah, we will bring today's talk to an end. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He grants all of us the tawfiq to be amongst the true followers of the Ahlul Bayt, inshallah. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that all of our brothers and sisters who are in difficulty and in pain, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala liberates them from their calamities and their difficulties, inshallah. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that people around the world, Lebanon, Yemen, other places in the world where we hear of the oppression, in China, the Muslims, everywhere that we hear, we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He sends His aid and assistance and gives us the tawfiq and the chance to do our part in aiding them and assisting them. inshaAllah. And last but not least, we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He hastens the return of our beloved 12th Imam bin Nabiyyi wa alih. Rahimallahu man qara al-Fatihata ma'a as-salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim. Sirata alladhina an'amta alayhim. غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين.